There's been a lot going on in the court docket in the last 24 hours in the case against Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, including Blake Lively now going after Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, for sanctions, which means he may have to end up paying some of her legal fees. Another thing that hit the docket is that Justin Baldoni's team has not provided the proper receipts. So as you know, Blake Lively had issued a subpoena to them, a motion to compel. Justin Baldoni's team, it now looks like, did not give over everything they were supposed to, including emails, text messages, etc. We also have an update regarding the subpoena that was given to Google, TikTok, and X regarding certain content creators. There was a letter filed showing that a few more had been removed that had filed motions to quash, including this dude, Andy from Popcorn Planet. He has been at the center of a lot of this. Several content creators have come forward to say that when they had their motion to quash with Blake Lively's legal team, they were specifically asked if they had any contact or payment or anything like that from this man, Andy at Popcorn Planet. Now, he was also filing a motion to quash for the Google subpoena, and it was granted today. He has still been subpoenaed individually in this case, but the part involving him with the Google subpoena has now been dropped, and he's already excited about it. He says it's not over. Blake Lively drops one subpoena again. Two interesting things to note in this letter. One is that all of the outstanding motions to quash have now been addressed, and number two was in the footnote down here on the bottom. So it talks about the fact that some of the people who have already been excused from this subpoena had their motions dismissed because they're moot now, because Blake has already removed them, have been filing for other things like sanctions and protective orders. So Blake's team noted at the bottom that these should all be dismissed based on the same reason of above, that it's moot now. There's no use in filing this because they're no longer involved in the subpoena. We also had an order from the judge. So Blake Lively's team had been trying to get emails, text messages, financial statements, content creator evidence, things like that from Justin Baldoni's lawyer's firm. So Brian Friedman's office. Now, Brian Friedman has been held to task a number of times over the last few months for what he's been saying about Blake Lively in public. Her team alleges he has stepped outside the lawyer role and he's becoming Justin Baldoni's PR person. So there are three sets of things that Blake was looking for. The first set, numbers 1 to 4, the judge is granting. And it didn't look like Brian Friedman's team had an issue with that. They said they had nothing to give her for that anyway. And then the last two sets, he is granted to dismiss them both, but he's dismissed one because he says Blake Lively can get everything through the Wayfarer parties, emails, text messages, etc. And the next set he's dismissed because it falls under legal privilege. So when you have conversations, emails, etc. with your clients, no one can get that. Now, unfortunately, this may bring in some more content creators because basically Brian Friedman's office, as well as the judge, said to Blake Lively's team, you should be able to get this information from the content creators and not the legal team. So she may have to look at serving more subpoenas. Now, as for this guy, now I personally thought Justin Baldoni's team may have been kind of pulling away from Brian Friedman because he was not making things easy for Team Baldoni in the press. He was making things look really bad, really unprofessional, in my opinion, and it looks like he may have just got himself in a boatload of trouble. As you're probably aware, Brian Friedman has made a lot of public statements about the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation, and most of it is very negative towards Blake and, of course, positive towards Justin. He's gone on podcasts, he's gone on TMZ, he has just done and said a lot. Now, at one point, Blake's team wrote the judge and said, enough's enough, we need this dealt with, and they did. They went to court, they dealt with it, and Brian Friedman agreed to a law that he was going to remain professional, but it looks like he didn't. Blake Lively's legal team has now filed for a motion for sanctions against Brian Friedman. Blake Lively hereby moves pursuant to New York Rule of Professional Conduct and the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure for sanctions against defendant's counsel Brian Friedman. Ms. Lively respectfully submits that the court should impose sanctions against Mr. Friedman as a consequence of his relentless media campaign to harm Ms. Lively's character, credibility, and reputation. For these reasons, and those set forth in more detail in the accompanying memorandum of law, the court should impose sanctions on Mr. Friedman. What this means is that Mr. Friedman could be responsible for paying for a portion of Blake Lively's legal fees, and you can imagine how much that would cost. Blake Lively's legal team has now filed a 25-page document and a ton of exhibits to show that Brian Friedman has in fact violated the court order that was set in February. They state that they want these sanctions held against him because he's repeatedly violated the court order. It says that almost immediately following the court's order in February, Mr. Friedman began violating it and has continued to expose the public and the jury pool to his biased and inflammatory pre-trial indictments of Miss Lively's character, credibility, and reputation. The lack of support for his statements appears irrelevant to Mr. Friedman because, as he personally explained to this court on February 3rd, 2025, in these kinds of cases, once someone says something, it becomes fact. Mr. Friedman's pattern of prohibited attorney statements warrants the imposition of sanctions. The footnote on the second page of this says, as laid out below, Mr. Friedman's strategy appears designed to harden public opinion in advance of the actual evidence being introduced at trial. For example, Mr. Friedman's repeated representations about the organic backlash to Miss Lively is not only directly contradicted by numerous allegations in Miss Lively's amended complaint, but by a recently produced, and then it's redacted, suggesting that in whatever email chains or text message chains she's been receiving, she's gotten more evidence of this as well. It also goes on to list a number of ways that Brian Friedman has violated this order, and it goes all the way from February up until June, including June 11th, when a 50-minute interview on a podcast was held, hosted by his former client, none other than Megyn Kelly. And last but not least, we have these guys. So, as you know, Blake Lively has been trying to get interrogatories from these guys. She wanted discovery from them, including Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel. Now, it looks like Melissa Nathan from TAG has submitted her documents. Jed Wallace has submitted his documents. But these guys, they took forever submitting their stuff. And now it looks like they did not submit what they were supposed to. Now, this legal filing contained a number of actions in this to save space in the docket, to condense things together, and it lists all of them here, including the court should compel the Wayfair defendants to produce all materials in their amended complaint, to produce materials from Signal, to produce all responsive materials after December 2024, all non-privileged materials with Mr. Friedman, and the list goes on. It's obviously too long to go through the whole thing on here, but I did find a fantastic summary on Reddit under Baldoni files by Admiral Novel 5766. So I'm just going to share the summary with you of what each defendant has left out and not given in their discovery. We'll start with defendant Sarowitz. So this is Steve Sarowitz, the multimillionaire that is behind Wayfair and Justin Baldoni. So he admitted to using email, iMessage, and Signal to communicate about Miss Lively, and so far, he produced 26 documents, and all 26 are just emails that he was basically copied in. So he left out everything else that he was supposed to file. As for Justin Baldoni himself, it says that he has not produced any documents responsive to many of the 151 RFPs that he included, and he said he would. All of the screenshots and things from his timeline and his lawsuit that he filed himself are all missing. As well, he has only produced communication with Melissa Nathan, who was his crisis manager, until September 6th, even though she was apparently working for him up until December. As for Wayfair, missing communications with Jed Wallace and Street Relations, even though Jed provided documents demonstrating they paid for and spoke directly with him. Other parties produced communications about the CRD complaint that Wayfair hasn't produced or provided. They have also identified content creators that have communicated with them, but they have not produced those as well. And all of those should have been included. It was also noted in the document that Wayfair has not produced its personnel policies and procedure, which would include all the employee handbooks, human resource documents, as well as insurance policies. As for Jamie Heath, there were huge chunks of things missing from his as well. He didn't produce the birthing video that he'd shown Blake Lively and her assistant on that day. He didn't produce the WGA waiver, allowing them to continue production during the strike. As for Jennifer Abel, she was Justin Baldoni's PR rep, and she's involved in almost every email, text message exchange, etc. that we've seen so far. So she should have had a ton of stuff provided, and she didn't. And neither did the TAG defendants and Melissa Nathan. There was a lot left out, including all of the text messages specifically cited in the Wayfair defendants' amended complaint. So the things they knew about 100% weren't included. So how do we know they're being honest with everything else? It doesn't look like the judge is happy. He's already issued his order compelling the Wayfair defendants to give all of their documentation and fix everything by the end of the day tomorrow.